666.
So just a cool entrepreneurial success story, really interesting where the rubber meets the road on Vision 2030. So very cool. Richard, what do you think? Let's get to Yella.
Saudi in a minute.
It's still funny. 1 year on, 65 episodes. Hilarious.
65 episodes later. Number one, COP27. Conference of Parties 27. You know, we talk with people and they always say, don't say COP, which I don't usually say, but Conference of Parties, COP27 in Egypt is underway. And I added this because it's important. The conference officially runs from November 6th through November 18th. The meetings are being held at Sharm el Sheikh in Egypt. There are two main sites for the event, the Blue Zone and the Green Zone. The Blue Zone, based at the Sharm el Sheikh International Convention Center, is where the official negotiations will be held. That space is managed by the United Nations and is subject to international law. Kind of interesting. More than 35,000 delegates are expected to attend the event, including President Biden and more than 100 heads of state. Although that is smaller than last year's summit in Glasgow, which brought together 120 world leaders and over 40,000 registered participants. It's a pretty good number for, I guess, a COP that, no major decisions are officially expected. I guess they do that every 2 years. So this is, a jump year.
Yeah, I mean, a big global spotlight on Egypt right now, Richard. Probably the most since 2013. There's a lot of sort of pressure there when the whole world gathers wherever they're gathering. There's a lot of, other stories that emerge. I really want to be optimistic about this summit. It's so hard, though, with the Russian invasion of Ukraine, a shaky global economy. There's all this pressure on climate action. It just seems like versus last year, and I know you mentioned this isn't like an action year, but all of the talk is now on climate finance, and with the sort of global economy in a bit of a recession or just not as sort of humming along as it used to be, it just seems, I just feel really not as optimistic about it this year. One report released ahead of the summit said that developing countries need to work with investors and rich companies to secure $1 trillion a year in external financing for climate action by the end of the decade. They're just, these numbers being thrown around are staggering, and it just feels like there's so much talk and not a lot of action. And I don't know if you want to react to that. It's just,
no, I hear you. The numbers are overwhelming. And I think, and I sort of wanted to put this down as a marker because, well, actually one of the, a later Yalla is the Saudi Green Initiative and the Middle East Green Initiative. And I think we'll revisit this, probably in a couple of weeks, either as a Yalla or one big thing, knowing me, because I kind of go off on some of these COP things. We won't know the outcome and the result for some time, and it'll be a lot of reporting, that sort of thing, but hopefully there'll be some good wrap-ups. I thought it was interesting that there's 11 days there, the plan to be 11 days, and each has a thematic day. So like on the 9th, it was Finance Day, 10th, Science Day, 11th, Decarbonization Day, and so on and so forth. So, they're going through and they're trying to hit all the marks, but there's a lot of politics. There's a lot of disagreement on what reparations and what, aid it should be, should move from wealthier nations to poorer nations. And so anyway, we don't know how this will come out, and it's fraught. President Biden will be there shortly. He's coming off of, some good policy that he passed in the U.S. in terms of climate action, but we'll see how he's received there. I think the tensions are pretty high between nations that are high emitters and those that are less so, but are trying to deal with some of the costs of climate change.
The way that I feel right now is that all the ice and the ice caps are going to melt, and we're still going to be talking about the cost of trying to deal with climate change. Richard, because you suggested this one, and I went back and listened to a little bit of our conversation with Jeffrey Beyer, was great and just really interesting to hear. He's based in Dubai, sort of the regional view of what was then the upcoming COP27, Saudi Green Initiative, Middle East Green Initiative, which we'll get to in a second. just yeah, and I tried to sort of prep on this topic, and there is just so much out there, and it's
It's
just sort of like,
overwhelming.
okay, yeah, like I want this so much to succeed, you know, for future generations.
And I agree with you. You get a sense of measures that aren't sufficient. Um, John Kerry was just there talking about carbon credits and how to price them and make them universal and that sort of thing. And I mean that's all nice and promising, but carbon credits have been abused and abused and abused, and they end up not achieving what you wanted so far. They've been disappointing in what their net effect has been. Uh, so you just wonder if there's going to be the impetus and the commitment to actually follow through on something that's meaningful.
Hmm. Well, yeah, and I think we should revisit this when it's over in a week or two,
Yeah.
and get the sort of like take a lay of the land, because it will next be in the UAE. Is that right? Or
Yeah, and I guess that's supposed to be a consequential one. I mean, they're all consequential, but I mean, some decisions are taken. But yeah, UAE. So yeah, the Middle East is quite in the at the in the spotlight in terms of climate action globally.
well, fingers crossed. It sounds like the big solution right now is to make one giant ice cube and just drop it in the middle of the Pacific Ocean and have everything cool down like water.
Well, that's not maybe that's not agenda. That may be. I think that's day 8.